Hi everyone, this screen recording is just to quickly go over the instructions for the process book this week, week 5, and also just to take a look at the project and give some suggestions based on kind of work I've been seeing from students and offer a little bit of help and creative guidance for the business cards as well. So this week we are on project 2 still, doing the business cards. Okay, so you should have ended last week with your sheet of digital sketches. To start this week, you're going to pick your 3 favorites, A, B, and C, put them here in step 6. And then you are going to do variations on each of them. So you'll do 1 page of variations for design A. You'll be doing 12 variations. So this is where you have kind of your idea, your fonts, your things in place. Now you're just tweaking where does information go on the card, how does a monogram work in there, does it not, is it vertical, horizontal, just kind of playing with ideas there. So you're going to do 12 variations for each. So you'll have a page A, B, C, 12 of each. Okay, once that is done, you're going to again pick your favorites, A, B, and C. In some cases, it's the same one you started with. After doing 12 iterations, you decided you still like the first one. That's okay. So just make sure you pick your 3 favorites here. And then this page right here will be the page that you upload to the discussion board to get feedback on. Again, this page right here. Save a JPEG of this page and upload it to the project to feedback board. And then hopefully people will comment on your work, give you feedback. If you noticed, last night I tried to go on to last week's discussion board and leave a comment on every person's, on their post to give them kind of my feedback on where I think they're at and what they could work on and just some different ideas. So go check that out if you haven't. Hopefully that can help you with this week's work. The other step for this week is you're going to be starting backs for the business card. So I believe you're only doing 1 page of these 12 different ideas for the back of your business card. So kind of where I envision this going is that the front side has most all the type, the words, your information, and the back is kind of your chance to be a little bit creative. The directions did specify no photography. It also said no illustration. I know there might be 1 or 2 people in this class that are illustrators or photographers, that's the word, but they really don't want you to like put your original artwork on the back. This should be still pretty type-based, design-based, so if you want to do a pattern of your name, or this would be a great place to put a monogram if you've designed one, if you just want it to be a solid color, maybe a really basic, simple pattern, but nothing too crazy, no photographs, no like drawing things, no, just keep it pretty simple still. And so here's a chance for you to express different ideas for the back of your card. And we'll be able to pair them with the front later. So that is basically all the steps this week for the business card. So now I just wanted to kind of jump over to Illustrator and take a look at some cards and some things I've noticed. So let's see. To start, for fun, I kind of just designed my own card with the specifications of the class just to see kind of maybe how I would do it. As you can see, it's really simple. This isn't an assignment that wants you to go crazy. You have the fonts need to come from the student font pack. So you're kind of limited there. Don't go out and download a whole bunch of fonts. Don't buy anything. Don't use free fonts. Just use those ones that came with the class font pack. And the information it needs to have, your name, the title of your job, an address. It says 2 phone numbers. I think a lot of people only have 1 phone number these days. You don't really have a home and a cell, so it's okay if you just want to list 1. And then you needed some sort of website or social media handle or portfolio site or something like that. So this is kind of how I maybe laid it out. You can see I have a front, my back. I just did like a really simple pattern with my name. That could be an option for you. Yeah, and on the front, I try to just keep it basic. I do have this kind of color bar here, so maybe that's an option if you want to incorporate some kind of thing other than just the type. I did a vertical layout, which is kind of cool too. If you want to explore vertical cards, I'm okay with that. And then as you can see, next week we're going to be exploring color more. So I just tried it in a color to see if I like it. So that's kind of how maybe I would approach this if I were doing this assignment. Just a sample. You don't copy this by any means. It doesn't have to look like this. This was just something that I quickly put together as an example. Again, if you don't feel comfortable using your actual information, that's fine. Just use filler, address, phone number. Just make it up. That's okay. All right, so now let's come down here. And I kind of did this kind of examples of blah versus better. So kind of taking maybe where you're at, maybe a first stab at a business card, and then looking at ways to make it a little bit better, some problems and some solutions. So this first one, problem, and this is kind of a starting place where a lot of our digital sketches started. It's just we got all the info down, it's there, all the bones and the parts are in place, but it's just looking a little dull, a little boring. There's not a whole lot going on here. So what can we do to make it more interesting? Okay, the first place I would start is the margins. See how close to the edge this is? This would get cut off if you were to print these cards and have them cut. The bleed would just cut that right off the edge. So you got to give yourself some margins. So in the solution, we have plenty of white space. Nothing is getting threatened to cut off the edge. All right, back over here, we only have one font going on. I think it's really nice in typography to do contrasting fonts. So if you're using a serif, pull in a sans serif. So over here, I used a bold sans serif for my title. I used a thin italic serif for the underline. I went back to that same family for the serif, back to sans serif. So it's really nice to kind of combine them here. Notice I have italics, I have bold going on, I have lots of different things. So it's not all just set in the same kind of boring thing that makes the hierarchy difficult to understand. Everything looks the same here. Over here, we have some variation going on to create interest. So second thing, so we have margins, we have contrasting fonts, pulling in two fonts. Another thing I noticed on a lot of cards I've seen so far is that some people have labeled all the different parts. So they literally put the word address and they type the address. Home phone, and they put the phone. Cell phone, website. You really don't need all that information. When it comes to business cards, they're so small, the simpler, the better. The less information, the more clear and concise it will be for the reader. So over here, I eliminated all unnecessary stuff. And if you do have two phone numbers and it is necessary to have some kind of delineation, you can use W for work, C for cell. Those are pretty standard things. People will know what those mean. And that saves you the space of typing out cell phone, work number. Also, with the website, something I've noticed a lot of people doing is typing out the full URL, http://www. You don't need any of that. That can go. It's 2019. Most people know how to type in a URL without all this extra information, and it's just filled space on your card. You don't need it. So I would just slim it down to just the essential part of the website without all those things. Same with if you have handles, social media handles, just put at the handle. You don't need to write out Instagram handle or Instagram.com/ people know what a social media handle is. It has the at sign. So just some things to keep in mind, just ways to trim the fat off the business card. All right. So the last thing was the monograms. So again, last week we had all this confusion with monograms. Just to reiterate, you do not need to have a monogram. It is not required. Some people have chosen to use one. It kind of adds an extra element you can design with, something more interesting to work with. I will say, don't get too tricky on the monograms. Don't spend a lot of time figuring out how to overlap the letters interestingly, and it just starts to get really tricky and messy really fast. So if you want to do some kind of monogram or initial, I would just keep it simple. Like right here, it's just an E and an L. Putting it on this little black tag kind of makes an interesting graphic element on the card. So I would stick with something like that. I wouldn't get all tricky trying to overlap and reverse and knock out your letters. And yeah, it just gets really tricky, really difficult, complicated. Just keep it simple. So there's a first idea. to go from blah to better. So the next problem issue is just too much going on. I noticed a couple of people had just a lot of elements. It seemed like they were just trying to cram in a pattern, a monogram, a title, different color schemes, and there's just a lot going on. So remember, you do have the back of the card to work with. If you'd like to incorporate some kind of simple pattern or color, the back might be a good place to do it. So a solution here, if you did still want to use some kind of decorative element on the front, would just be to tone it back. So as this one has this pattern that kind of covers the whole background, in the solution we have just a small strip of the pattern, and it's just on one side. There's still plenty of white space, breathing room, but we have a little bit of color and some fun elements going on here. So just pull back on the pattern, just use it in a very small amount. Make sure the pattern is simple. So kind of this bamboo plant thing is a little complex, makes it difficult to read. So here's a really basic, just stripe pattern. Again, on some of them I've seen the name is not the first thing you see on the card. We don't want that. We want the name to be the most obvious big thing on the card. That should be the most important thing, is your name, because it is a personal business card. So over here, graphic designer and the monogram take the focus. We don't want that. We want the name to take the focus and have everything else take a backseat to it. So graphic designer becomes smaller. That's secondary information. The primary piece of information is my name. Again, with the contact info, I trimmed the fat. We got rid of all the address, the home phone, all the extra URL stuff. Just made it very simple, very clean. This still has all the information, but it's very simple. This one even only uses one font, but it uses different styles. So we've got bold and regular going on here. Another variation I did of this were some vertical ones, just to see, in this case, I didn't use a pattern, but I used a monogram. So I kind of did this little sticker treatment, put my monogram, a little sticker on there. You can put your name at a different angle. You can go sideways. That's another way to create interest. It still feels very clean. There's definitely a grid going on here. All the elements are working together. And then you could even do a color. If you do a color, keep it, again, very simple. It's just two colors. We have white and red, the little black sticker, nothing crazy. It's very basic, very simple. There's still a lot of this white space for your eye to rest, which is what we want. Okay, so there's a solution for one that's too busy. The last one we have here, there's no grid going on. So I saw a few that kind of have a bunch of elements and a bunch of exciting things happening, but it's just too much and it's not organized. So right here we have things, we obviously have this big old name in the background, but the address and the home phone and the website are all on different parts of the plane. There's no grid, there's no cohesive lines to follow. Your eye kind of wanders and gets lost. Again, when the name is in the background like that, it's being treated more like a pattern. It feels like it's taking a back seat. It's more of a decoration than a focal point. Solution, name, front and center, very clear. It could still use a color, but see how this one, even with elements kind of still being in different places on the card, there's a very strong grid going on here. There's a clear left margin and a right margin that all of the elements line up to. There are horizontal lines that are cohesive, vertical lines, and we even worked a little pattern in here at the bottom. But again, it's very simple. It's not a star of the show. It's just a little simple background pattern going on here at the bottom. So the lines are clear. There's definitely a grid, and we cleaned it up a lot from this first example. So hopefully those were just addressing some different problems and maybe things that I've seen to just help people come up with ideas of how to lay out your card. So even though fonts are limited, they're asking us to be very simple. Sometimes it's nice when there are different rules in place. You can be really creative within a set of rules. It'll push you to think harder and be more creative if you follow the rules that have been established. So hopefully this was a helpful little video to give you some tips, and please feel free to email me or leave comments on this post if you still need more help, need more ideas, feel like you need more feedback. So good luck this week.